Well, welcome to a Saturday morning edition. Up before the dawn, man, edition of TED Talks, guitars, and life. Hey, man, I've been having a great time visiting with so many of you in the comments about doing guitar stuff and upgrading budget guitars and man, just what you like to do to budget guitars, and I just think that's really fantastic. So what I thought I would do this morning, and really this is based in several comments that I've had to several of my videos along the way of my little budget journey of learning to make mods, and I mean that sincerely, learning to make mods. I noticed on my channel that the Harley Benton experience began about 9 months ago. So I am not an expert in these things at all. And I do think, though, for those of you that I'm visiting with, particularly those of you who are saying things like, man, I've never done that level of part swapping before, or I don't really even know what parts to get. Look, I'm sure that there's all kind of other channels that you could look at that would maybe offer different perspectives, and I am really relying on J-Man and Two Bike Mike and other people who I trust, who I know watch my videos from time to time, and hopefully this one, and will correct ever so gently in the comments anything that I might say that is incorrect, and also that they might make suggestions, and that all of you, man, we all have opinions, and so much of guitar playing is player preference. And so I keep saying in almost every video I make, man, hey, you do you. And so many of you are coming back and saying, yeah, but what if I don't know the difference between things? What if I don't know what I'm looking for? How do I figure that out? Like in the sea of just advertisements and all these different tools and gadgets and gizmos that are out in the market today, how do I know, man? So the best way that you know, again, and I'm just going to say this, I know it's repetition, but maybe it'll be helpful. You learn what you like, you get a guitar, you play it, and if things do not work well for you, then maybe you look at upgrading things. Okay, so we are still on this Demusa, something like that journey. And again, I had never heard of this brand before, so this is a new thing for me completely. This will not be my grandson's guitar. I've got a guitar coming for him today because this is the same guitar that had that 11th fret deal, and I've decided not to tackle that, to send this guitar back. But because the guitar that's coming is this exact model, I'm getting my parts laid out today. Okay, so, and I discovered that I don't have at least one part that I need to stop right now and make a note of. Okay, great. So let's start here with the headstock. Okay, so on the headstock, there's a couple of areas that you might want to be aware of. So I keep talking about string trees or string guides. And the challenge with these string trees, these just metal things, is that there's no lubrication here on these. And they're oftentimes create points, unnecessary points of friction, and not very helpful. And I broke a string on this particular guitar, you may remember, in the first video, or the second video, which is the first under the hood. Oh, sorry, man, it's early. But so string guides. So I'm going to walk you through kind of some possibilities of string guides in just a moment. The second thing is the tuners themselves. Now again, this has closed back tuners, and this is the very common tuner that you're going to see on any budget guitar, any sub $200 guitar, and even I've seen some higher price guitars that have these kind of generic nondescript closed back tuners. So again, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with these, but there could be. And so this is going to be about when you're tuning the guitar. If you, like, let's say you get really close to an E, and then all of a sudden it just kind of and you fall back down to E flat or lower, and that means that the tuner is not doing its job. It's not holding the string where it needs to be. Or if you're tuning and it feels like it's grinding, or if it feels super loose, or if it's taking you 20 turns to get anywhere, then you may have an issue. Okay, so let me talk through a couple things related to tuners and tuner replacement. And because I have already in the Under the Hood videos talked about some of these dynamics, I won't get into all of the dynamics, but I do want to show you, forgive that, let's see. So it might be helpful for me to just show you a couple things. So I have, and again, I have these things because I've done several of these budget guitars projects where I buy a budget guitar and fix them. And my journey began, I was really trying to see, man, how close can I get to a Squier Classic Vibe with a budget guitar. And truthfully, man, it occurred to me this morning that what I need to do is take my Squier Classic Vibe apart and maybe review it. So if I were to replace these tuners for my grandson, and I more than likely will do that just because I've experienced a couple of challenges so far. But again, this isn't the actual guitar, so when that guitar comes, I will have to evaluate the tuning machines on it. Okay, so the first thing that I would do with a budget guitar like this is that I would oil the tuners. And I talked about that in Under the Hood and how you can do that. If you have any questions, just drop it in the comment and I'll turn you on to where that video is. But by way of tuners, so I have in my parts collection, because I've done this a few times, something like this. This came off of a Fojill Telecaster. The Fojill Telecaster playlists are in the description. And so this is like a vintage style. It's got you put a little bit of the string in and you bend it and you wind that bad boy. Okay. And these tuners were okay, but it came off of guitars that I was upgrading. One was for my granddaughter. Okay, so these tuners may be better than the stock tuners on the Nemusa, or again, they may not. And then if I was really wanting to do something crazy, these are Musiclily, I believe. I don't believe these are the Geico ones. I'm pretty sure I bought Musiclily last time around. I will figure that out and drop it in the comments. But these are locking tuners. Okay, so the way this works is you put your guitar string through the hole with this kind of unscrewed. You pull the string through, you pull it tight, and then you just twist this thing up. Now, if you over tighten, the more tension you put on that string, you may break a string. Okay, but these were pretty good tuners. I had those on the FireFly, and but I since upgraded the tuners on the FireFly, and in some other experiments that I'm doing, but that's not this video. Okay. Now, again, when you replace your tuners, one thing that you're going to have to bear in mind is that you may or may not have tuners that use ferrules. So ferrules are either these things that drop in the holes of the tuning holes on the headstock of the guitar. Now, these holes vary in size, 8.5, 10 mil, etc. And so you can't see because they're in the bag, probably, but these are different size, 8 mil, 10 mil. So if you decide that you want to swap tuners, the first thing that you want to do is take a tuning machine off. Just do one at a time, okay? Because if you take them all off and then have to put them all back on, it just takes up your time. So I would start with one, get you a ruler and measure it, and then whatever tuners you order, make sure that the hole is going to work. Now, a little bit of experience talking here. If you don't do that, then potentially what's going to happen is that you're going to end up with a, let me just make a little bit of rattling noise here. You're going to end up with a hole that maybe is too small for your tuner. This was my solution. By the way, man, if you buy anything like this, be very careful. So I bought this off the Zon and put it in my drill, and ever so gingerly, or not so gingerly, bore those holes out until I could get a 8.5 ferrule hole into a 10 mil hole. And that seemed to work out pretty good. Okay, now again, folks, I'm not telling you what to do. Okay, this is not descriptive or prescriptive to anything that you must do. I'm just sharing my journey with you as always. Okay, so let's talk string guides for a minute. So when we talk about string guides and we talk about the metal trees, so there's a couple of different ways you could go. And one, this is a Fender road worn string guide. So you'll see that on the bottom it has little tracks where your E and B string go, and then if you had them on the other strings, then you can do that as well. But it sits pretty low, and so with most string guides in the bag that you get, more than likely there will be a spacer. So what I mean by spacer is something like this, where if the string guide is too low, okay, that's not good either. So what you want is about the same level of tilt on the strings. Okay, you want that same as much as you can. So you may need a spacer, and again, a lot of string guides will come with spacers, particularly if you're putting two on. One probably needs to be shorter and one needs to be higher, depending on the strings. Now this is a string guide. I don't know the brand, but this is something, this is not ideal, okay? But it's an example. So on this, you see how it has the rollers on there? You put the strings under the rollers. That is, in my experience, and you guys feel free to comment, man. Love to hear your comments. Much better than this, okay? There's no edges to this. Now, again, other string guides that I use. So I don't have any with me, and I'm thinking about what I'll do here. More than likely for my grandson, I have two of these in my little bag of tricks here. So I'll more than likely put these on and we'll call it a day, okay, on the string guides for right now. And if they don't work out in time, I can always swap it out for him. Not a big deal. Now, the other thing to bear in mind, so there's some other options. You can get a Graphtec string guide. It looks kind of like a plastic piece. And let me see if I can grab the old FireFly here. Let me see if I can do this. How y'all doing, man? Dude, it's Saturday. I got the coffee going. My dog isn't even up yet. It's crazy. So this is my FireFly FFTL. So this is what those look like. These are Graphtec string guides. And you can see it's the similar approach, right? Where you've got the strings under, but these are supposed to be lubricated and they work really well, at least for my purposes. I really like those. You can get those in like a kind of a whitish color. You can get those in, I think, a black. Shout out J-Man. J-Man likes to put black parts on a lot of guitars. So, oh man, I know he digs that. So the other thing to keep in mind about all of this is that, you know, man, there's all kind of brands and there's all kind of people, and over time you'll find your own way. And so nobody sponsors any of my videos, and I really thought this morning, man, do I need to get rid of anything that's in my background or stop using brand names? But you know what, man, I'm just trying to be helpful. So maybe that's helpful for you so far today. Let's go ahead and talk about the nut while we're here. Most nuts on electric guitar are about 42 millimeter. But if you were going to swap out a nut, let's say you bought a budget guitar and you discovered this is a plastic nut and maybe it wasn't cut well, or maybe let me show you what I mean by that. So on this particular guitar, if I fret the 3rd fret on the low E string, and then I look at how much give I have between the 1st fret and that string, and look at that, look what I found. Is that, oh, that's just an illusion because it's early morning and my eyes aren't working. I thought that fret was sticking up, but it's not. It's just the reflection of the, yeah. Okay, so anyway, you want that to be, you don't want it sitting on the fret, but you don't want it to be too hard to fret, if that makes sense. And again, play the guitar. It doesn't matter how much it costs. Play the guitar. And if it's easy for you to fret and you can get your intonation set up right, and it sounds good to your ears and it feels good to you, man, you do you. Okay, now, if it is too high, then you probably need to file the nut down a little bit, and I won't talk too much about that in this video. I did some of that in the under the hood, but there are different tools that you can purchase. Files. Guys, you can spend hundreds of dollars on files, or you can spend 19 bucks on files. It really doesn't matter, really, as long as you make sure that you do not cut that slot deeper than the 1st fret is high. Okay, in fact, you want it to be a little bit above the 1st fret. If it goes too deep, then you're going to have string buzz and bad things going to happen. Okay, in the event that you decide to replace your nut, again, this is a brand, and no brand is sending me stuff. You know, man, I did have I got a weird email from a company whose name will remain nameless, who said, hey man, we'd love to send you this and blah 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 if you'll make a video and if you'll give us a shout out. And I was like, I don't think about that, probably not going to do that. Anyway, so this is a Tusk nut. This is like a lubricated, permanently lubricated kind of bone equivalent Okay, now here's what you need to make sure when you're buying nut for your guitar. Every guitar has a radius. Okay, so the other thing that you may or may not want to invest in, and again, you don't have to. I got these from Solo, again, and I get them wherever you want, man. This has different radius gauges in it. So you could do this with the strings on or off. But again, you set this on the neck of the guitar and then under the strings, okay? And my camera, I can't really get in the shot and I don't want to move it and make you all seasick. But without any strings, you want to sit it directly on the fret of the guitar. And you just want to see if there's any gaps. And when you find one that is straight or as close to this as you can get, like within a hair maybe, you're in the ballpark, right? Okay, so I'm sorry to talk about ballparks. Please, well, you guys can tell me in the comments, but I know, man, sometimes, you know, I've had guitars that were kind of between 15 and 16. It's not exactly either one. But that said, so once you have an idea of that, most budget guitars, import guitars that I have seen, particularly from the brands that I had never really heard of until I started my experimentation, have been 16 gauge radius. Okay. Now sometimes there's a compound radius, and what that means is that the first 12 frets, maybe it's 9.5. And then once you get to the 12th fret, it levels out and it becomes something else, okay? Maybe 12 or 14 or something like that. But here's what's important. When you buy your nut, so I know that this is the radius of this guitar. So what I'm looking for is a nut, and this is not, I did not purchase this for this purpose, okay? But if I line this up, that is pretty close, but not perfect. Okay, so what that would mean is, and these nuts have this little block on the bottom. Okay, so you're just going to have to take the nut out, and then you're going to have to like sand that down. Get you some sandpaper, and do some sanding. And again, a little bit at a time. Okay, slow. Little bit at a time, and until you get it where it is level and sits flush in the slot that's for the nut in the guitar. Well, what have we talked about this morning? So this morning we've tackled parts for the headstock, considerations for tuner, string guides, the nut of the guitar. We've talked about ferrule sizes. We've talked about locking tuners. We've talked about vintage tuners, and then there's always just the traditional tuners that just look like this that you just wind. And so, player preference, man. If you don't like to wind strings, then maybe you want to look at locking tuners. Again, brands, I don't know if that really matters. But Matt, if you've got a favorite tuner that you use, feel free to drop it in the comments and let everybody know. String guides, I have also used the Fender string guides, and those are pretty good. It's the similar concept as the rolling string guide, this one, but it's not a roller. It's just kind of cut with a groove, but it's all rounded off, so not a lot of friction there. Well guys, that is headstock parts, and again, it's early Saturday morning. I'm just getting ready for my grandson's replacement guitar to come, and just want to get all my parts and my ducks, as it were, in a row. Well Matt, hey, wherever you are in your guitar journey, man, I pray it's a safe trip for you. Rock on with your bad selves on this early Saturday morning, and I'll catch you down the road.